and welcome to the Revolut Insider Podcast, where we explore Revolut's rocket ship from the inside out, one episode at a time. I'm your host, Alex Carril, and joining me today, we have Head of Sales in Spain and Portugal, Elisabet Girvent Valls. Hi, Elisabet.
Hi, Alex. Good morning.
How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure.
I'm curious to know how you got into sales in the first place, because you're managing almost 200 employees now from 20 when you first started, and kind of how you've taken control and navigated your career over these years.
Yeah, I'm excited to tell you.
Well, let's get into it. When we first caught up, you shared that you lived in quite a few places before joining Revolut, and that was about 3 years ago, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and kind of why you decided to move around?
Sure. For me, sales was never the obvious choice. I have a background in geology. I love science, physics, chemistry, math. So I never thought I would work in sales. That was not in the agenda. But then at the same time, I always wanted to work for an industry that had money. At the time when I had to choose my career, that was oil and gas, which is what I studied because I wanted to travel. I wanted to always be challenged, work with the best, and learn a lot. And then when I finished my degree, obviously oil and gas was not a thing anymore and not something I personally wanted to work in. So I decided to do my master's in a business school and give it a chance with technology, which at that time was the industry that had the money, had the possibilities, had all these amazing job opportunities. I, again, never thought sales would be my thing, more like sales operations or analytics. But at the same time, I love people and I love working with people. And I wanted a job that was flexible enough. And I will talk later about time management. And that also allowed me to travel and live in many places as often as I could. I always like to live in the country, not so much traveling into the country. I know not everyone can do it and not everyone wants to do it. But to me, sharing the real life with the people is what I'm interested. So going less than 2-3 months in a place, for me, it's not enough. I want to just sit in a bench, look at people, see how they do their daily things. And sales allowed me to do that. I've been changing every 1.5 to 2 years of location. And I lived in, 7-8 countries for almost 2 years in each place. South Korea, so Seoul. Also, I did New York, Madrid, London, Dublin, Switzerland. And now I'm back in Barcelona.
Wow, it's quite the move that you've had over these years. How were you able to adapt in each of these places?
So that was the challenge, right? And that's what I think makes me a better salesperson. And I would like to think also a better person in general. Empathy is something we need to cultivate. And in order to understand people, we need to get to know cultures, manners, like every country has their own way of doing things. And business is a projection of that life. In some countries, I adapted better than in others. Obviously, with experience, I was able to adapt faster. And I did a lot of mistakes, and I'm sure I could have done things better. But I would say, as a general rule, listen and observe more than talk. And that's the same in sales. At the end of the day in sales, I always say it's not about selling. It's about listening and understanding what the customer wants. So if you do that in your personal life, I think you can learn a lot from the culture, from the countries, from the people you work.
I think that's a great way to explain sales in general, is listening, because I was in banking before as well. And when you are helping people to find solutions to their everyday needs, I don't feel like you're selling anything. I feel like you're just genuinely helping people.
Exactly. And that's what I love about my job, that I didn't know that it was like this. That's why I never considered sales in the first place, because I never knew what B2B sales were. B2B selling is a win-win situation where you solve a problem and you make money out of it, which is great. I don't think I know how to sell. I just know how to identify a problem. And if I can offer a solution, then the sale happens.
Definitely. And I think that people wanting to do business with you, so if you can have this moment with them, this genuine connection with these people, then you build these relationships and you have the right then to ask for that business.
Exactly. And I feel that's the same in real life as well, right? People will be happier to share their time with you if you make them feel listened and you pay attention and you're present. And I think, to me, that's why I got so happy into sales, because I felt, working on those skills made me not only a better professional, but also probably a better girlfriend, friend, mother. Those are skills that can be very easily translatable.
I completely agree. And you mentioned making the transition into sales because you were following technology and really following where the money is, right?
Exactly.
And what are some other reasons why you decided to move into this business?
I think there are many. One, I really like thrilling experiences. I like adrenaline. I love extreme sports. And I feel having a corporate career in sales is somehow related to that. You have very high highs, very low lows when you have to start a new quarter from scratch, when a sale happens and when it doesn't happen. But that's what kept me here. I think what got me here was this always need to become better, always this challenge. And I think that's what really motivates me and what was very appealing. And at the end, it was enough to stay here for almost, I think I've been selling for 13 or 14 years now.
Wow. Really embodying that never settle spirit.
Exactly. And also getting it done. I think that's something that is very particular to Revolut, not only to B2B sales, but I feel not all the companies have this spirit of let's just make it happen, which means like, let's use everyone we can in the company, let's partner, let's collaborate, let's think about all the ways that we can make things happen. And to me, that's very interesting because obviously with a leadership position, you feel like you can shape a lot more everything you're doing. In other companies more established, the processes are already there. Mm-hmm. And I feel at Revolut with never settling and getting it done, it's really something that keeps me very, very happy every morning.
What attracted you to Revolut specifically then?
So being fully transparent, I was already a head of sales in a tech company here in Barcelona. It was my first leadership role, managing more than 7 countries, all the managers in those countries. I was managing a team of around 70 people. And at that time, Revolut contacted me. And at first I was very happy. I thought, oh, I love the brand, but I'm very happy at my job. I didn't consider it further than that. They reached out to me again, and then it got me intrigued. I was like, why are they so interested in this position in Spain if they don't have a lot of presence in Spain? At that time, I was in my previous company for 6 months, so obviously I was not considering changing. I was up to the challenge of being a leader, learning all of that. But then I had my first interview with Matt, who's the director and partner in charge of all sales at Revolut. And he told me he had this crazy idea of creating a sales organization from scratch and reaching something like 1,000 people in 2 years. 200 of those would be in Iberia. And I remember I felt like it was not the right time for me, but it was the best opportunity for me. And I remember talking to my boyfriend and I said, I'm not ready to leave my current job, but I don't think an opportunity like this comes so often. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. We always discuss about opening our own business, but I felt I didn't have the experience enough to do that safely yet. And I felt this was the closest experience to opening your own business that I could have in a corporate world. And here I am. In 1 year, we hired almost 130 people. And after 2 years, we're at 200. So it has
incredible.
It has been a very fun ride. And I'm very, very happy that I took that first meeting.
Yeah, it's that possibility to start something from scratch and to be creative as well. Because I know you're a creative person yourself.
Yeah.
Right before we started this episode, we started talking a little bit about theater, and Elisabet actually has some theater experience.
Yeah, I think it's this like feeling inside your belly that you know it's super scary, but also that you're really excited about doing it. And it's the same feeling as when you jump from a plane, which I love, that you're very scared, but then once you jumped and you're falling and you have to enjoy it. So I feel it's the same theater or a career in sales leadership, where it can be frightening sometimes to take some type of decisions, but I feel you can only do it if you enjoy the ride while you're doing it. And I'm definitely enjoying myself a lot, learning a lot, and learning a lot from my mistakes.
That reminds me of just cold calling people. And, when you say jump out of a plane, for me, picking up that phone and pressing those numbers, it's that moment that you say, what's going to happen? But once you start talking to the other person, it's that exhilarating ride, exactly. Right? Of like, oh yeah, okay, I'm doing it. I'm doing it here now. Yeah.
And you will get a lot of no's in cold calling, but when you get the yes, that feeling of closing a meeting, it's one of my favorite things because it's so tough. It's so difficult. You have to be so good at self-motivation, at keeping focus. And we always say another no, it's one step closer to a yes. And when you get the yes, it's very empowering. That's why I love sales. And when I have new people, it's really exciting to see how people have a career on that and are happy doing that. And when someone is really happy with their job, you see it. And in sales, it's very easy to see.
and it's worth it. What would you say to someone who has been in the same position or that might be in the same position that you were in, where maybe they don't feel like they're quite ready to make that jump, but there's this opportunity that comes up that they might not be expecting?
I think life is surprising. And to me, my philosophy is to always let life surprise me. We have to have a defined plan, but then we have to be very flexible on how we get to the end where we want to get. And when the right opportunity comes, you have to grasp it. Now, the real question is, how do you know that's the right opportunity or not? I always advise the same, take the interviews. And I think that's something LinkedIn taught me, my previous job, that interviewing is good, is healthy for everyone. And I think we should be open about it. I don't mind when people in my team take interviews. Obviously, I would be very upset. Right now, we have 0% attrition in my management team, which I'm very happy.
Congratulations.
That's maybe why I'm very happy saying that. But go through the process. For me, Revolut was not even a possibility until I went through the process. I met Matt, then I met amazing professionals. And to me, it just became very exciting. And at the end, the answer was clear.
Wow.
It's not like a leap of faith. I think it has to be something very calculated. But going for interviews, accepting calls, accepting talking to people, I think that's something we can all do every day without risking anything.
And you can speak from experience because you've had several promotions and responsibilities since you started. Can you tell us about that journey here with us at Revolut and how you built the sales division in Spain? Because you built it from the ground up, right?
Yes. Well, with a lot of help from a lot of people.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely. So basically, I was hired on a Tuesday. And by next Tuesday, I had 21 people joining my organization,
wow.
right? So I was hired in theory as a head of sales already. But then the reality is that I started to work as a sales manager because there was no one to be head of, right?
That makes sense.
So it was what needed to be done. And to me, it was great going back to the calling piece. For the first week, I did all the roles because I needed to understand who to hire, what were the processes that we needed. So I spent a good 5 days selling, cold calling people, onboarding clients. And I thought that was very insightful afterwards to hire the right candidates and to form the right teams.
Do you think that a lot of managers do that in today's world?
So my managers do it.
Great, okay.
I feel, and it's not because I'm in sales, I've always said that everyone in a company should do some type of selling at some point in their training. Because at the end, doesn't matter where you're working, you might be in operations, in legal, in HR, in product. We serve our customers. If you don't know what they are thinking, you don't know how to interact with them, it's very difficult that you put them at the center of your decisions, which is where our customers should be.
Of course.
So to me, I always said it. And then every 5-10 years, I would do a refresh where everyone has 1 week, little quota, achieve, a couple of sales, talk to a couple of customers. And I think in many companies, things would work a bit better.
I mean, it really makes you invested, right? You take pride in what you're selling, in what you're doing and what you're helping to build for the company.
And it also highlights a lot of areas of improvement, whereas it's not the same if you hear people reporting into you, telling you, oh, we have this problem or that, than you talking directly to the customer. It's so powerful. And it also brings a bit of more respect to our sales executives, which are doing an amazing job. They spend many hours, a lot of motivation, a lot of energy to bring the best customer experience. So I think it's good for everyone as well to be reminded.
And speaking of account executives, how do you align your team with the company's values and the culture to keep them motivated? Because sales is hard, right? We said we start at 0 every quarter. And how do you keep that motivation alive?
So I think that the first thing is to understand what's your company culture. And I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong from my experiences on people that were not happy at their job in the previous companies I worked at. I worked in very different companies. I worked at Samsung Electronics in South Korea, which was, a very Korean culture infused into the company. So very different to anything else. Then LinkedIn, which is, I always said it was almost like continuing being at university time on an Erasmus, but like paid. It was super, super fun. And then now I'm at Revolut, which has another type of culture, which I love. And I think it's about understanding the differences and understanding where you're at. That's the first thing you need to have people motivated. So before we were discussing about getting it done and never settling, to me, that's very important at Revolut. We go fast. We don't send emails. We send Slacks. We don't have meetings to prepare meetings. Every minute is precious. Most of my meetings are 15 minutes. And I come prepared to the meeting. The meeting is just to take a decision, to discuss a couple of points, and then we go back to work. And that's a very fast pace of working, which I love. but you need to love.
Yeah.
So if that's not what you like, I think the earlier you realize, the earlier you can decide to do something else with your career. But if that's something you love, this is an amazing company. We promote people. We keep people very motivated. We invest a lot into making them better. There's so many hours of training. It's nothing I've seen in anywhere else. So we want to make people better, and it's a great place to learn. But you have to have tough skin. You have to be ready for the challenge.
And for those that are ready, for those that have decided, okay, sales is for me, what advice would you have to stay motivated on their own end?
So find what motivates you. Whatever. In sales, it can be many things. People think it's money. It can be money. It can also be time flexibility. If you're someone that likes numbers, that likes the challenge, and that motivates you, which is something that motivates me to learn, to change, that not a single day is the same as the day before. Sales, it's a great place to be and to stay.
Love that. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with more Insider Views. This podcast is brought to you by Revolut Ultra. Enter a world of exclusivity with the Ultra plan from Revolut. From world-class travel to supercharged savings, Ultra is your ultimate Revolut experience. Ultra is only available in the UK and the European Economic Area. Terms and subscription fees apply. And we're back on the Revolut Insider Podcast here with Head of Sales of Spain and Portugal, Elisabet Girvent Valls.
Very excited to continue this.
Elisabet, you mentioned you're a mother of 3 children. What have you learned about your career while being a parent?
Before having kids, I thought I was very organized and I was really good at time management because I always had a very active social life and I have a lot of hobbies and so on. But becoming a mom made me like a ninja of it. I get so much more done because I'm much more present on what I'm doing. I know how to separate very well different tasks because when I became a mom, I never thought that a baby, you cannot switch it off.
Yeah.
Like when they need to eat, you need to be there. When they cry, you need to pick them at that time. You cannot snooze, you cannot postpone. It has to happen at that time. So it taught me to be very present and when things happen. So when I'm at work, I'm at work. When I'm in one meeting, I'm in that meeting. When I'm doing something, I'm 100% there. And I realized by not trying to multitask, I can get a lot of things done in a much better quality and less time.
And have you learned anything about parenting while in your career?
Yes. So when you manage people, you realize that even though you think that something is in a way, every person sees things differently. And it's not so much about who's right or wrong, but more like what people are feeling at that moment. And I think by having the pleasure of managing a lot of people in the last years, it equipped me better to handle my 3 daughters when they are frustrated about something, they don't understand something, they want to throw a tantrum. I try to remember that it's not that they are right or wrong to do that, but like at that moment, they are feeling this way. And I think it helps me take a step back and have more patience. Doesn't always work, but it improved.
It's the effort, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's talk about your latest promotion. Tell me about that time for you and moving into a new role.
Yeah, so as we discussed before, my first recruitment process for Revolut was to become the head of sales. But at that time, we didn't have a team to be head of. So I started as a sales manager. It was kind of obvious that the transition will happen in the future, but it was never stipulated on when, on how, and the timings. And that's just a startup world. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot of patience as well in my job, which is really good for me. So basically, I started my maternity leave of my 3rd daughter right at the time where the country was at the right size to have a head of sales for the country. We were at that time around 4 or 5 teams, which is like 60, 70 people. It made sense to have someone in the leadership to just do the leadership role, because at that time I was doing all these leadership roles while having my teams reporting into me. So it was amazing learnings for me, so I can do a better job now thanks to that. But I went on maternity leave at that point. And for me, it was tricky. Timings, it's never the right time, right? To take like 4, 5, 6 months off.
I mean, I can imagine. I don't know. I don't have kids myself,
No,
but I take your word for it.
Even if it's to like sabbatical or something, it's never like the real right time to take time off. It's never right. There will always be something that you want to postpone or to keep there. So to me, the timing was not ideal, but my baby was due. So I took my maternity leave. And then what I knew, and that's something that, again, is about listening to oneself and trusting your worth with and working a lot on oneself is I knew when I would be back at work, I didn't want to be back as a sales manager, which is how I left. I wanted to be back as a head of sales. I had so many initiatives, so many things I started already that I wanted to just focus my energy, work, escalate the country, basically what I'm doing now. And I knew that was my next step. I knew I could not have the energy to leave my newborn at home, plus my one toddler and one infant, to go back to work in a job that was not motivating enough for me. And that's when we discuss about motivation. I think it's great to self-motivate, but also there should be a time and a place where you say, okay, this is what I want, and anything that is not that, I don't want.
Knowing your worth.
Exactly. Yeah. And at that time, I knew I was already more than a year into the role. And I just wanted to just do that. So basically, when I had to be back, I had to go through the process because at Revolut, hiring is very fair. And we want and encourage people every time we have a position that they can apply internally as long as they qualify for it. So I had to go through the process, which was great because it also assured me that I was the best one to take on this role amongst the competition. But I also knew if I wouldn't get that position, I was ready to start looking somewhere else. Because I think at the end, life is short. I know it sounds like a cliche, but like you have to make life what you want life to be for you. And for me, that was the time that I didn't want to be a sales manager anymore. I proved myself I could do this job already in the past in another company, here doing it, acting as a deputy. So for me, that was it.
Well, good for you for knowing your worth and really going for your dreams and what you set out for yourself. And I think that's really inspiring for anybody, not just in sales, but in any job. Even if you're just going to school, if you want to study something, go for what you want to study. Really follow your dreams and know your worth.
And I think when we say follow your dreams, it sounds like super big and this like unachievable thing that is like, I want to be a rock star and all these things. But the reality is that you can set very achievable goals and achieve them. And that will give you the power and the strength to set higher goals and achieve them afterwards. And I think to me, obviously, it's not the same when you're at that time. My seniority was a bit higher than when I was 25. But it's not the same. You learn, and in the corporate world and in sales, those are the things that I think you learn, how to deal, how to negotiate, how to know what's the value and what you're bringing to the table.
Definitely. Well, it seems like you've managed to have it all. You have a successful career, a large family. When you look at your life, what are you most proud of?
Again, a cliche, but I think it's about living the life that I chose to live. And that's a very conscious thing that I do almost every day. We all have to do things that we don't want to do sometimes, but that's not what this is about. It's about if life would end tomorrow, would I be happy with what I'm doing? Yeah. And as long as the answer is yes, I think I'm living my best life. And that doesn't mean, living in a beach selling coconuts, which can be for some people, don't get me wrong. But I chose to have 3 kids. I chose to have a very exciting career in the corporate world, and it's what I'm doing. It's not for everyone. Everyone has to choose what makes them happy and not try to follow what other people want them to do.
What would you say to our listeners who are navigating being a parent and following their career ambitions?
I think it's a great opportunity to learn a lot and to challenge yourself and to get out of your comfort zone. It's a great chance to draw some limits for your kids, for your employee, for yourself. What are you ready to give up? What are you not? And again, time management. I think you can become really, really good at time management if you try to juggle everything.
And I think there's a misconception that when you're a parent, it slows down your career. But as you've proven, that doesn't always have to be the case.
It doesn't have to. Unfortunately, it is the case for a lot of people. And the majority of these people are women. But it doesn't have to be. I usually get a lot of questions about my family, and I love to answer because when I was 25, I wanted a big family and I wanted a good career, and I had no reference. I had either friends that had a lot of kids, but no working experience, or I had very powerful women that had this amazing career, but didn't have kids or had 1 kid. And I always ask the same question, like, why didn't you have more? Was it because you didn't want to? I was very interested from the beginning to understand. And I think to me, what was the drive was that I couldn't imagine a life without a career or without a lot of kids. Now, that being said, having no kids is also a really great choice. It is a very valid choice. And I feel like I have it all because I wanted to have all these things. But I feel someone that doesn't want kids can have it all by choosing to have whatever they choose to have.
Definitely.
So my advice would be just to choose what you want, be truthful to what you want, and don't let other people tell you what you have to do.
Great advice and words to live by, really. Do you think that employers should do more to create a more encouraging environment for working parents?
Definitely. To me, one of the things that I cannot leave this podcast without saying is that Revolut is 100% remote working place. We are today in the office. We can choose to come if that's what we want, but many times I spend months without coming to the office because commuting time for me, if it's 1 hour, that's 4 meetings I can have. And when I finish my latest meeting at whatever time that is, I close my computer, I'm home, I can go and be present with my kids. So remote working has made possible my career and my family. Without remote working, that would not be possible. So again, when thinking about taking an opportunity, choosing to change career, those are things we need to take into consideration. Even if, I don't know, right now I'm very, very happy at my job, but like if someone would come with a very cool opportunity, double the pay, amazing company, which again, I cannot think of something better at Revolut for me right now. But like if they would come and they would offer me that, and that would mean going to the office, I wouldn't take it. I just wouldn't take it because there is no money that can pay me being completely flexible to be at home and taking care of my kids. So the advice I would give is choose wisely your employer and what employers can do better. And at Revolut, that's something we consciously do. Block times where you cannot put meetings. Again, as I said before, we don't have a lot of dull meetings. Like for me, there is not a single meeting I have in my agenda where I don't have to have a say. If it's just to listen, I watch the recording, I read the notes, I don't need to be there. So I feel it's my job to set the boundaries with my managers, set the limits, but also as employers, I'm a manager of 10 direct managers, and I am very conscious that some of them have special requirements with their agenda, and there is no work that cannot be done that is as precious as, for me, family time. For other people can be, any sports,
walking
gym.
your dog.
Exactly. I think at the end, it's about knowing what you need to deliver, knowing your limits and how you're going to deliver that. And if you plan that and you're successfully delivering that, no one should question the schedule.
Of course. And it's so much easier when you have a work environment like Revolut that not only can you work flexibly, right, whether you want to work at home or in the office, but you can more or less set your own hours. And I think that's really empowering for individuals.
Exactly. And again, that's Revolut, but Revolut with sales is this to the power of 10.
Well, I'll take your word for it. Elisabet, I just want to ask you before I let you go today, what would you tell yourself when you were just starting out in your career?
That's a very good one. I would just tell her, you're right, and follow your gut because it's going to happen. I wanted what I'm having now. Obviously, not every day I'm a happy bunny, but I have this family I wanted. I have this job that I wanted. I have the partner in life that I wanted. Times are changing, but like not so long ago, some people would tell me, well, being a woman and having a career, that was already a challenge. On top of that, being a mom, forget. And then every time I would get pregnant, people would be like, oh, but now you're not going back to work, right? So I think for me, it was never a question because I love being a mom and I love working. So I would just say, follow your gut. It's going to happen. And the more people that tell you that you can't, the more energy that you get.
What a wonderful way to end this podcast. Well, thank you so much again for being with us today, Elisabet. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it a lot. And thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah. And for those listening, thank you so much. You can add the podcast to your favorites so you don't miss an episode, and follow us on Instagram at Revolut Insider. Thanks for tuning in to the Revolut Insider podcast, where we explore Revolut's rocket ship from the inside out. Until next time, remember, the sky's not the limit. It's just the beginning. Revolut. Change the way you money.